And this lawyer was doing work for the Ukrainian government. So that's the link, and he'll try to turn this witness against Gates, against Manafort, and possibly against others.
Well, he's got him. I mean, by all accounts, he is pleading guilty. This isn't an indictment, it's an information, which indicates that he is cooperating. Garrett Graff, you've written extensively about the scope now. What appears to be, I don't know if it's expanding, but just a very large scope of the Robert Mueller investigation. What do today's charges tell you about that?
Well, so this is the part of the strategy that's hard for us to understand, is that Bob Mueller obviously knows where this investigation is going, and he knows what the next step or 2 or 6 or 12 of this investigation is going to be. And so part of the question is, why is he bringing and unveiling these charges today? This is in reference to a conversation, a series of false statements that happened in November of last year. So why on this Tuesday morning in February does Bob Mueller feel it necessary to bring these charges publicly? My guess is, as Paul and as Jessica sort of pointed towards, is because it's another way for him to apply pressure to Paul Manafort, and that is at the center of where this investigation is heading right now, even as we are seeing very important steps in other parts of related probes, like Friday's indictment of the Internet Research Agency.
Like Friday's indictment of the Internet Research Agency, like Steve Bannon going and answering questions over 2 days, like the fact that as far as we know, they are still negotiating with the president's team himself to get him to come and answer questions from the special counsel. Shimon Prokupecz, where do you see it fitting?
Yeah, I agree with everyone. I think this fits into the larger picture concerning Paul Manafort. Certainly some of the reporting that we have done here, our team that's been covering this here, there seems to be a lot of focus on Paul Manafort. From the beginning, there have been a lot of people within the FBI and within the Department of Justice who feel that he knows a lot, who feel that he was at the center of a lot of communications with Russians. Certainly this charge today shows that he was playing a role in backing the Russian-backed president of the Ukraine. So there's every indication here that this is really about getting Paul Manafort perhaps to cooperate, and this is just a building block towards that. It also seems that anyone who did work with Paul Manafort is in the crosshairs of the Department of Justice, of the Special Counsel, of the FBI. It just certainly seems that way. This is a pretty aggressive move by the Special Counsel, and like you said, and like everyone here has said, this Special Counsel probe is much larger and much wider than any of us know.
And Garrett Graff, just to put a point on this, you write about the different silos of this investigation. I think you see as many as 5 of them, but Paul Manafort really transcends more than one of them because, he's one in and of itself, dealing with his own Ukraine financial dealings going back in these charges of money laundering. But he was also at the Trump Tower meeting with Donald Trump Jr. when he was promised dirt on Hillary Clinton. He was the campaign chair up through the convention when there are questions about that, and through this crucial summer as well. So just because some of these charges with Paul Manafort right now deal with money laundering in Ukraine doesn't mean it could transfer to another area.
Absolutely, and in fact, that's a very standard FBI investigative technique here, which is you're trying to apply pressure at the edges in order to work your way closer to the center. And that's very much what we are seeing sort of day in and day out on Paul Manafort. And remember, this is actually just the latest. We saw it Friday afternoon, sort of buried in the midst of some of the Internet Research Agency indictment news, was new news by Bob Mueller's team that he says that he has new evidence of new bank fraud by Paul Manafort. So there's a lot of new pressure coming on Paul Manafort. And ultimately, I don't think Bob Mueller's goal in this is to prosecute Skadden, the law firm, for work that it was doing 5-7 years ago. The goal is to figure out what's the truth at the core of this Russia investigation. And that's an area where Bob Mueller thinks Paul Manafort knows more than he's saying.
So, Paul Callan, counselor, if you are Ty Cobb or Don McGahn or anyone advising the president on his legal course of action, what do you make of all of this? Robert Mueller seems to be pressing charges against people who have any issues with the truth.
Yes.
They testify to him. If you're Ty Cobb right now, you're saying this guy from Skadden, he's going down for a lie, which could be a pretty small lie. Am I going to put the president in front of him?
I think that's the thing that should send shivers down everybody's spine. If you look at this information, one of the counts is that this lawyer misrepresented and said he didn't know why one email had not been produced, and Mueller knew he was lying about that one thing and indicts him for it. Now that sends a message to all of these other witnesses who are being interviewed by Mueller. You better be telling the truth about every single detail of your testimony or you face possible indictment. Think about what Mueller could do with the President of the United States under that kind of a microscope. It's a powerful message Mueller is sending to the White House.
And meanwhile, Shimon, there is new exclusive reporting from CNN over the last 24 hours that Robert Mueller's been asking questions about the financial dealings of Jared Kushner. These are questions that have been asked. Jared Kushner's legal team says he hasn't been asked to produce any documents dealing with this. But again, this is an area possibly of new interest by the special counsel.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And this has to do with investments into a building in Manhattan, 666 Fifth Avenue, which Kushner Company is part of, and it's over $1 billion in debt. And there were specifically 2 countries that had interest in investing in the building and helping it with the debt, and this was China and Qatar, and there were some conversations that Kushner had with folks from that country to get them to see if they would invest. Those talks eventually broke down, and what we've been told is that the special counsel has been asking questions of people close to the investigation, of people close to Kushner, of people who are in these meetings about those and what that was about. And we're not entirely sure why that is, and as you can see by today, we just don't have a great sense of what Mueller is exactly doing here, but it seems anything that comes close to where people are lying to him or not giving him a complete picture of what they were doing, of what was happening during the campaign, during the transition, even before with Paul Manafort, he's going to charge them.
Garrett Graff, any matters that might arise in the investigation. That was the original appointment from Rod Rosenstein. The special counsel seems to be taking advantage of that.
Absolutely. Although, remember, this is very core to the central question of sort of what was the Russian influence on this campaign. When you have these set of business ties for the campaign chairman who, remember, was working for free, who volunteered to work for free for the campaign, that sort of points to, why did Paul Manafort do that? Why did he step into that role? What was his goal in trying to do this? And there are a lot of interesting questions, remember, that we still know exist that we haven't seen public evidence about, including why did the RNC sort of attempt to change and soften language relating to the platform at its convention relating to Ukraine? That could be very much a part of this larger picture. Bob Mueller knows where this investigation is going, and it's clear to us day to day we don't.
Well, we will see perhaps more as the day develops. This individual, Alex van der Zwaan, due to plead guilty this afternoon, and who knows what else could happen today. Paul Callan, Garrett Graff, Shimon Prokupecz, thanks very much for being with us. I appreciate it.